going to talk about business and the economic health of the country. But I repeat myself, while big business gets the headlines, small business remains the backbone of the country. In the US, 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. That is businesses with less than 500 employees. And 68% of those are real estate, specifically rentals and leasing. It's been a rough year for small business, but especially with the American entrepreneur, hope springs eternal. The worst is behind us, right? Lockdowns, mandates, essential, words that broke the back of many entrepreneurs and created the truest and most unprecedented disparate impact on businesses and workers, and record-breaking metrics that we hope to never see again. More money is the federal rallying cry as businesses continue to pick up the pieces from the sudden impact of lockdowns. And here we are. Forget the Laffer curve or principles of economics. We're left to navigate the next new normal of taxes, policy, and regulatory hurdles. Here to help us sort through it all, and someone who knows a lot about the intersection of taxes and enterprise, is James D. Martinko, managing partner of CohnReznick out of Bethesda, Maryland. One of the largest accounting firms, CohnReznick is over a century old and has offices in more than 25 cities. Jim is expert in both market rate and affordable, and is fluent in multiple languages, including HUD, government auditing, and LIHTC. Jim, what perfect timing to have you on the show.
Wow, thank you for that introduction, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
President Biden's tax plan drastically scales back the 1031 exchange. This, of course, is the tax policy that allows deferral of capital gains on real estate. It's not available for most other investment asset classes. Why are real estate gains different?
So the law as it stands now has been around since 1921. And this isn't the first time that it's been challenged. And in fact, there are many benefits with the program, which is primarily the reason why it's withstood so many programs. So here are a couple benefits. So first, it allows someone who owns a piece of real estate, instead of having to sell it, they can pivot to another asset class. They could pivot to something that's a little bit more stable, maybe even in another location, geographic location across the country. And the 1031, because it doesn't require any payment of income tax when they do the sale, it increases the amount of investment that a taxpayer can have in their replacement property. So you could see somebody going from a Class A property, taking all of those proceeds and maybe reinvesting them in a Class B or Class C, something that might be underutilized in a community that needs some revitalization. So that's one of the reasons why it's been successful. And another reason is it helps the little guy. You were talking in your intro about small business. The 1031 has been a program that the small investor has been able to take advantage of. So it's not only a benefit to the wealthy, but also the smaller, less capitalized investor has been able to take advantage of that program.
President Biden has also proposed significant increases to corporate and capital gains tax rates. How would you expect the commercial real estate market in general and the multi-housing market in particular to be impacted if these changes are implemented?
So this is a big part of all of the discussion that's going on right now, and it'll be interesting to see where all of this falls out. So currently, the capital gain tax rate for long-term assets is generally 20%, and what the proposal is it's suggesting to increase that to over 39%, which effectively is going to, for the higher income taxpayers, which effectively is going to eliminate any difference between the rates on ordinary income and capital gain. And capital gain taxes were lower because the thought is that we want to promote or encourage investment. So increasing those taxes to the higher rate, it eliminates that incentive. And in particular for the multifamily industry, now obviously these taxes are only going to be, you're only going to incur these taxes when you sell. right? So it doesn't impact the, there's also proposals that are going to increase the ordinary income rates, the highest rate, a couple of points. But so the impact to multifamily is with higher rates, there's going to be less of an incentive to invest in construction. It could impact, or most likely impact, the deal flow that we see. And unfortunately, a lot of this might flow down to the tenants of the properties in the form of increased rents. So there's many different pieces of the additional taxes imposed. Something that's popular in our industry is carried interest, and carried interest was a capital gain if you held the property for more than 3 years, more than 1 year if it's a 1231 gain. But all of that goes away with this new legislation, and the fear is that it's really going to impact the ability or the willingness of a developer or an investor to take the risk without seeing some benefit in the form of lower income taxes.
So I have to ask, you have a pretty good seat with regard to view of the industry. What do you think the chances are that this will happen?
So that's an interesting question. There are 14 Democratic seats up for re-election in 2022. The government has the ability to use budget reconciliation to get all of these bills passed. And again, there's 2 bills that are being promoted or proposed that solve a lot of infrastructure problems and a lot of social issues that people have been talking about. But it will take a lot of compromise, and we'll learn a little bit more later on this week, or maybe sometime soon. President Biden will issue his 2022 budget plan, and more details will come in a Treasury Green Book. So we at CohnReznick, we see some compromise being made on the capital gain taxes from a high of 39.6. We see that coming down to a 28% rate. There's a proposal to increase the corporate tax currently at 21% up to 28. We see that coming back down somewhere in the 25% range. We do see taxes on higher income individuals going up. So there's plenty of planning that we want to take advantage of. As far as timing, we see something being rolled out in the last quarter of 2021, with the date of enactment being no sooner than January 1st of 2022. Past history has shown us that when there's a proposal to increase capital gain rates, they allow a window of time to pass for the taxpayer to plan, and more important for the government, to allow a window for taxpayers to sell the property and have the government collect all of that additional revenue. So it could be you don't want to raise income tax in an unstable economy. So if the economy does not continue to stabilize and expand, the rate increases that I discussed may not go into effect in 2022. It might be pushed back even farther. But as with any legislation, sometimes there's hidden details that are surprises, sometimes unpleasant, that come out in the final plan. So it'll be interesting to see what's in his final plan.
Absolutely, and certainly the best outcome is a lift to the economy, not a abridgment.
That's correct.
LIHTC has been a major source of funding for affordable housing since its creation in 1986. But it's complicated. Since credits are sold at discounts, it provides less of a subsidy than would a direct allocation of federal funds. Why not replace LIHTC with a direct federal subsidy for affordable?
So the LIHTC program may be complicated, but it is one of the most successful, one of the most long-lasting housing programs that the country has had. And let me give you a couple of statistics. Since 1986, you mentioned that's when the program was enacted. It's developed 3.2 million apartments for families, veterans, people with disabilities. 7.4 million families to date are now living in safe and affordable housing because of the LIHTC program. And the LIHTC program is one of the first and most successful public-private partnerships that this country has ever seen. And you're seeing a lot more public-private partnerships going on with infrastructure by way of example. So last year alone, there was a little over $18 billion of equity invested in low-income housing. That's a substantial amount of investment. And so a couple of things about the program. People say it's too expensive. Well, one of the reasons why it's so expensive is the properties are built to last. They use new technologies to enable a property to be sustainable, water and energy efficient. A lot of upfront time and cost goes into construction and design, because these are built for a long-term solution. The holding period for these assets is at least 15 years, plus you have extended use requirements on the back end. So they are expensive, but it's intentional that it's expensive because, again, they're built for they're built for the long term. Unlike market rate housing, there aren't any studio apartments in low-income housing. So that's another reason that the unit sizes are bigger. There's typically community space, learning centers, community areas that are built into these properties, which increase the cost of construction. And so there's a bunch of layers of financing, and that increases the cost. But at the end of the day, the yield that a tax credit investor receives for its investment in a low-income housing property is about 5%. And that's not an unreasonable return at all for the development risks that they take. So our firm has been a proponent of this program since its inception in 1986. And we don't believe that any other program will be as successful as this one has, and has or with the track record that it has. It allows the flexibility. It's a federal program, but the money is distributed to the states, and the states decide where it wants to invest. As an example, the housing in Maryland might have different issues that they want to solve than the housing in California. So it's teaming the federal government with the tax incentives, with the oversight and expertise that the investor and the development community have. Very successful.
The $18 billion is compelling. The localization of decision-making is absolutely necessary. I can't help but think back to Pruitt-Igoe in the 60s that had a lifespan of 12 years before it was raised. So cost is a little more than, as you mentioned, the investment coming in is critical to the lifespan of the property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, again, it's the problem with some of the programs in the past is that the government threw a lot of money at the problem and then didn't pay attention to its investment over a period of time. So the properties became neglected, and maintenance was deferred. And they just don't have the expertise to be real estate developers.
Well said. Very well said. Another government program, Opportunity Zones, were introduced in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. How successful have they been in directing investment to low-income areas?
So this was one of the more complicated pieces of legislation that came out. The final regs were issued sometime, I think, in 2019, and everyone thought 2020 was going to be a banner year for investment, and then COVID happened, right? So one of the problems with the program is it wasn't very specific on reporting. So it was hard to determine how successful the Opportunity Zone program has been. But in a recent report that was issued by the Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation, it found that of the $24 billion of investments in Opportunity Zone properties in 2019, substantially all of it went into low-income communities or the communities that were adjacent to the low-income communities. So with that respect, it's been very effective with getting, having these deferred capital gains rolled into distressed neighborhoods. There's 8,700 census tracts right now across the country, so there has been some success in getting a substantial money invested in low-income communities. The problem so far, not only with the reporting, but it's kind of the 80-20 rule, as I like to refer it. 80% of the investment has gone into 20% of the property. So it's not consistent across the country. A lot on the coasts has been developed, but where investment might be the most needed hasn't seen the type of investment activity that the program would have wanted to see. And it's the reporting, not necessarily getting all of the investment to the lowest or the communities most in need. And there has been some gentrification of the communities where the investments has been made. So those are some of the things that the administration is trying to figure out. I think that the program will continue, and there are some changes which are being proposed that might help solve some of these other problems.
Tell us a little bit about those changes. What do you expect under President Biden?
So there's a couple of things that are proposed. One is in the way of reporting, so the investments can be tracked a little better. Another idea, which is easy to measure or monitor, is having the entity or the fund be required to show teaming with a community organization where the property is being built. The other one is a score to prove that the community where you're developing is improving, and that's a little harder to measure. I understand the intent, but that's a little harder to measure than the other one. All of the investments that we've seen thus far, I mentioned 80-20. Of the 80, most of those have been in multifamily. Mixed use multifamily specifically, with an affordable component. So depending upon where that property is located, there are some teaming with local organizations and such that would continue that kind of profile to take advantage of the benefits under the Oz program.
Excellent. That would be very, very much needed.
Yes, I agree.
Well, I could go on forever, but that's all the time we have today. And I do appreciate you joining us, Jim. We hope you'll come back. This is a topic critical to our economy and certainly a moving target in the days ahead. And
it's very sensitive. As you mentioned, it is a very timely discussion. And we look forward to seeing what our president rolls out. And of course, helping our clients and our colleagues navigate through all the changes. That's what's kept me in the business for over 30 years. I love helping people and helping their companies grow and prosper. So that's what we're all about. And we need those services. We need the guy across the desk saying, "Okay, I'll relook at the tax return." Yes, exactly. Yes. Thanks for coming on the show. Okay, thanks again. It was a pleasure. Taxes, economics, politics, they hold the keys that unlock the breath of freedom. And of course, having a really good accountant helps a lot. Jim, thank you for helping businesses find their way through the forest in all manners of economy. And thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our show and look forward to the next exciting episode of NAHB Power Hitters.